citizens, partners from other local government agencies and nonprofits, as well as our local business owners. My name is Billy Peppers. I'm the city manager here in the city of Canton, and tonight's a special occasion for the city as we hear from our mayor of the state of our city. We do have a few small changes to our operations tonight because of the state of the city. So we will open our meeting with our pledge and with an invocation. After that, the mayor will give his State of the City address, and then we'll take a short recess so that we can get everybody readjusted in the room before we start the meeting. At this time, it's my honor to welcome Officer Gunner Redd to lead us in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. Officer Redd is our newest sworn officer with the Canton Police Department. He started his career with Team Canton on January 4th. And graduated from the University of North Georgia with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and the University of North Georgia Police Academy. He's local. He went to King's Academy down in Woodstock, and we appreciate his commitment to our city, as well as the commitment of all of our public safety personnel in the Canton Police Department, Cherokee Fire and Emergency Services, and our dispatch professionals at 911. Officer Redd.
Y'all please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we will also have our invocation delivered by Nathan Brandon. Mr. Brandon brings many years of service to our community through his work at Canton First Baptist Church when he lived just across the street, and to serving residents at Cameron Hall, to leading senior services for Cherokee County, serving as the chairman of the Cherokee County Chamber of Commerce, and most recently serving our city as the chair of the Canton Housing Authority. He holds a heart for serving neighbors, and we appreciate him being here tonight. Mr. Brandon.
Would you pray with me? Father, as we've gathered tonight, we come with the awareness of your blessings to our community. We have leadership that deeply cares for our cities and its families. And while we are thankful for your blessings, we also wish to ask for your continued favor. We ask that you give us wisdom. We ask that you give wisdom to our leaders and give them strength in their endeavors and give them true insight into what is best for our city. May we always acknowledge your blessings to us while we attempt to be a blessing to others. For these things we pray in your Son's name. Amen.
You may be seated. Tonight it is my honor to introduce Mayor Bill Grant to present the State of the City. Mayor Grant is the fourth mayor I've had the opportunity to work with in my local government career. Many people think the role of mayor is akin to the role of a governor or the president at the local level. And it's always exciting when we get to go and speak to a group of elementary school kids that assume that the mayor lives in a mansion, makes a gazillion dollars, and has a chauffeur. Sometimes they think I'm the chauffeur. In all seriousness, the roles of the mayor and council involve more time with the public than at any other level of governmental office. They're your neighbors. They live in your communities, they go to your churches, they eat at the table next to you in the local restaurant, and likely get stopped at the grocery store by constituents to ask questions. I'm appreciative of the members of our Canton City Council and the vital role that each plays in our local governance. Mayor Grant was born in Dalton, Georgia, and attended Berry College. He has a degree in English and psychology, and he launched his career in design and holds numerous honors in design and graphic organizations throughout the country. Mayor Grant was one of the first members of our Main Street Board here in Canton and additionally served with the Cherokee County Arts Board. In 2013, he was elected to our City Council to represent Ward 2 and was re-elected in 2017. He was elected mayor in 2019 and sworn into office in January 2020. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Mayor Bill Grant to deliver the 2023 State of the City.
Thank you, Billy. You guys hear me in the back there? So, thank you all for coming. Good evening. So as mayor of the city of Canton, it's an honor to update you on the state of our city. To our guests in the audience and those watching this live feed at home, I welcome each of you for this most important annual duty as mayor. Tonight, we have some special guests from our community, including local elected officials from the city and the county, and many members of our boards and commissions. So if you're an elected official in our city or our county and are a member of our board and commission, please stand to be recognized. And of course, I cannot go further without recognizing the hard work and thoughtful leadership of my colleagues on our Canton City Council. Councilor Sandy McGrew, Mayor Pro Tem Brooke Schmidt, Councilor Sean Tolan, Councilor Dwayne Waterman, and Councilor Joellen Wilson. Our city is better for your service, and I'm grateful for your collaboration. And even with the most capable elected officials in most recent memory, the state of our city would not nearly be as positive without the guidance and operational expertise of our city manager, Billy Peppers. We're also extremely fortunate to benefit from the steady wisdom of our assistant city manager, Nathan Ingram, and to our city clerk, Annie Fortner, Police Chief Merrifield, our department heads, and dedicated members of Team Canton, and the talented volunteers on our city boards and commissions. I thank you for your commitment to our residents and appreciate your passions for our city. Most of all, I'm grateful for the citizens of Canton, who continue to embrace our path forward with enthusiasm and kindness. Tonight, I'm proud to report the state of our city is more compelling than ever before, and we're determined to continue to brighten the corner where we are in the coming year and those that follow. The Canton of today is home to over 35,000 residents. Some of you lived in the community your entire lives, while others only a few months. We have businesses that celebrated silver and gold anniversaries in our city, and new entrepreneurs have recently invested in Canton as they seek to serve our neighbors and growing local and regional economies. We also have community partners that work with Team Canton to assist with public safety, judicial and community services, and provide support to residents across a wide spectrum of backgrounds and needs. At the end of the day, it takes all of us working together to write Canton's compelling narrative, a story we should all take great pride in telling for generations to follow. When I was elected mayor in 2019, I promised to work with our citizens to build a Canton that we all aspire to see. In collaboration with our city council, we embarked on a mission to understand the needs and wishes of our citizens. From social media feedback, discussions with constituents, public input meetings, exploring reports commissioned by our prior councils, listen to citizen representatives on boards and commissions, engaging with residents in public meetings, and working through discussions with our professional staff, we created and launched our Roadmap for Success, which was adopted at our last council meeting in 2020. 8 distinct tenets were adopted to form the basis for the manner in which we review business at every council meeting, explore opportunities for capital investment, determine priorities for spending, create and tweak public programming, and task our city manager in operating our city. Our roadmap involved numerous goals and ambitious projects which we anticipated taking up to 15 years to achieve. Tonight, however, I'm very happy to report that after only 2 years of steadfast focus on planning our work and working our plan, we have initiated or completed almost 70% of the projects, programs, initiatives, and action items included in our initial roadmap. I don't know about you, but I think it's fairly rare to have any government body look back and say, perhaps we didn't dream big enough. In fact, after only 1 full year of implementation, the City of Canton was recognized by the Georgia Municipal Association, which represents 537 cities in our state, and Georgia Trend magazine as the Visionary City Award winner last January. Since that time, we've hosted a number of mayors and elected leaders from neighboring cities to tour our community, listen to our story, learn about our roadmap, and experience our success. Tonight's an opportunity to share some of our unique achievements from this past year, recognize some local champions for their work, and set the stage for what is sure to be another busy year of continued planning and implementation. While I will not take time to review each accomplishment or every exciting thing to come this year under each of the 8 tenets, I will touch upon some of the highlights and direct you to our city website for more details and extended information. You can thank me for this while you're enjoying your dinner in a short while we're still here in the council meeting. So let's begin with creating great neighborhoods, a tenet that covers so much more than housing. As you look across our city, we have some beautiful neighborhoods that are still being developed, and they include covenants that protect the investments of our residents within those communities. At the same time, we have historic neighborhoods with homes that date back over a century or more. Today, we're hearing a lot of chatter about the merits of whether a home is owned or rented. However, it might be interesting to remember that many of the first homes in our city began as rental homes, owned by local industries such as the Canton Cotton Mill, and rented to provide quality workforce housing for their employees. Many of these neighborhoods still exist in some form, but there's at least one critical difference. These former mill villages do not include covenants to protect their residents. What they do offer, however, is a realistic view of our local housing market. And that reality is this. While some of these homes may only have an appraised value of $40,000 to $50,000, they also may be being rented out for $1,500 a month or more, simply because of the issues of supply and demand. One thing we heard clearly from our residents during the creation of the roadmap was the need to concentrate on a wider variety of home products. Residents wanted options for seniors, options for new homeowners and young families, opportunities for local employees to live and work in our community, and strategies to improve public housing currently offered in Canton. As a reminder, Canton has the only housing authority in Cherokee County. Over the past few years, our partners at the Canton Housing Authority and our new board of directors have worked diligently to change the culture of public housing in our community, and I want to thank them for their inspirational work. I also want to recognize the chair of our Canton Housing Authority Board of Directors, Mr. Kendall Jones, who was named just today as Cherokee's first citizen at today's annual chamber meeting. Kendall, please stand and be recognized. Congratulations on your well-deserved honor, and thank you for all you do for our community. As part of this process, the city has committed to assist with the financing to overhaul the current public housing in Canton for the first time since the early 1980s. As recently in December, the Housing Authority was notified that it would receive state funding to demolish the existing public housing units at Ship Street and Jefferson Circle, replacing the same number of existing units with new state-of-the-art townhomes on Ship Street. Canton has committed $2.8 million toward this project in the form of a loan. A portion of this loan will be used to purchase the Jefferson Street property from the Housing Authority and invest in a community park for the historic Stumptown neighborhood and provide land that was formerly subsidized rental property for the construction of new owner-occupied housing units. Additionally, the city has committed $1 million of funding to demolish existing Housing Authority units and replace these with 75 newly constructed residences in the Oakside community. All of the funds committed to the Canton Housing Authority are funds received by the city as part of the federal COVID relief grants to local governments with the restrictions that included public housing. To further our goals in this tenet, the city promoted Mr. Ken Patton to the role of Housing Initiatives Director. Mr. Patton is currently the only municipal or county employee focused solely on improving housing options and developing great neighborhoods in Cherokee County. Since taking on this role, he has worked to develop plans for cottage homes and accessory dwelling units. He's also working on a program to assist first-time home buyers with down payment assistance. Along with a program to assist Along with local citizen stakeholders, Mr. Patton is working closely with Councilor Sean Tolan as Canton joins the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. And I want to thank Councilor Tolan for his leadership and passion on these issues and his hard work. Celebrating our diversity is the tenet that recognizes today's Canton is a wonderfully diverse community of individuals, families, and businesses that have a variety of interests and needs. Our diversity is perhaps best visualized at our annual multicultural festival and 5K held in September. This year, a dozen countries represented by your neighbors at Etowah River Park. Through the great work of local churches, partners, and our amazing Canton Police Department, we welcome several thousand attendees from many states to join in a celebration of food, dance, music, athletics, and good old-fashioned community building. If you've never experienced a Nigerian chicken gizzard, Honduran pork, or a Canton Police Department hot dog fresh off the grill, your taste buds have truly been deprived. So, diversity also means reaching out to our youth. This year, Canton, our city's youth council, hosted a job fair for our young residents. This very room was packed with businesses looking to hire part-time, seasonal, and full-time teenagers getting ready for summer or preparing to graduate high school and college. The event opened the eyes to the potential successful employment to fuel their gas tanks, assist with their family bills, start a career in their own hometown. And just this past Monday, our canteens returned to this room for a day of service on MLK Day to collect and package personal items for their fellow teenagers in need and write thank you notes to our public safety officials. I want to thank these young citizens for mentoring me and giving our community great hope about what Canton's future has in store for all of us. Please join me in thanking our core 2022 Canton Teen Advisors who are here tonight, Sophia Melbourne, Mackenzie Rodriguez, and Laney Klein. Please stand. I can assure you our future is in good hands. In other diversity initiatives, we have continued to add staffing to provide a variety of translation options for our customers and citizens. Additionally, the City of Canton altered its recognized holidays to join our federal and state government in celebrating Juneteenth. Advancing regional economic success has been a major task for the city's new economic development and tourism manager, Ms. Angie Busby, and what a great asset she has been. She and our revamped Canton Tourism Board have been working to highlight the best of what Canton has to offer to our community and visitors alike. The local hotel tax, which must be used for promoting tourism, is being leveraged to assist with growing local events, partnering with our hospitality partners, and creating a new marketing website that will grow opportunities to bring visitors from around the region who will invest in our local economy, be it a few hours or a few days. The city also utilized funds in the current SPLOST sales tax referendum to purchase 325 acres along the reservoir at the Bluffs. And the reservoir would proudly, from this day forward, be known as Lake Canton. The land had initially been intended to boost the local economy 20 years ago as a technology park. Over time, however, portions of the land were randomly converted to single-family neighborhoods and rental townhomes. To support the continued growth of business and reimagine the opportunities along the water, Canton has partnered with the Cherokee Office of Economic Development to expand side opportunities for innovative business development. In the last year, all existing corporate development is fully utilized, and investment from Germany and the Netherlands ensure an international component of technology and even global headquarters will bring high-paying, sustainable jobs to our city. To complete this area and prepare for future opportunities, Canton also partnered with Cherokee County to improve transportation between the Bluffs and Cherokee County Airport through groundbreaking of Technology Ridge Parkway. Rest assured, however, our vision at the Bluffs is not limited to corporate growth. Quite the contrary. In working with our highly qualified consultants, the city is planning to add a hotel and conference resort to the east side of Lake Canton. While still in the feasibility stages, this exciting project will bring upscale lodging, waterfront dining, and much-needed meeting and banquet space to Cherokee County. Our hope is that weddings, conferences, reunions, business gatherings, and community events will choose Canton when looking for a unique destination in our region. In addition, plans have been completed and design concepts are beginning for trails and recreational facilities around the entire shoreline of Lake Canton. And these amenities alone will enhance the local economy, create exciting new recreational opportunities for our citizens, protect the beauty of our natural resources, and provide an unmatched, upscale hospitality experience within the heart of Cherokee County. Enhancing historic downtown Canton provides a careful fabric of historic preservation, new development, arts and cultural activities, and small business opportunities. As the oldest city in Cherokee County, downtown Canton is home to many century-plus-old buildings. Over the past 4 years, nearly 600,000 square feet of historic buildings have been or are in the process of rehabilitation and rebirth. Let me say that again. Over the past 4 years, nearly 600,000 square feet of historic buildings have been or are in the process of rehabilitation or rebirth in downtown Canton alone. The historic Jones Building is the latest example of this work. Received by the city as part of a negotiation of consolidating fire services with the county, the Downtown Development Property Authority sold the property in 2022 to Mr. Penn Hodge and Mr. Grant Schmilk for a mixed commercial offering of office, retail, and restaurant uses. Now, Penn and Grant are no strangers to quality redevelopment as owners of the Mill on Etowah, which was recognized by the Georgia Downtown Association as the Redevelopment Project of the Year in the state of Georgia for 2022. And speaking of the Georgia Downtown Association, Canton will welcome this group as the host of the State Downtown Conference in August later this year. Other major projects downtown include the opening of the Cherokee County History Center, the new wildflower mural on Lee Street, thanks to Councilor Schmidt for her leadership in the arts, and 22 certificates of appropriateness for historic preservation projects, thanks to our Historic Preservation Commission. Again, the only Historic Preservation Commission in Cherokee County. And the new downtown parking deck, which includes a solar canopy that powers 10 free electric vehicle charging stations and helps offset energy costs for the City Hall. During the next year, the city will be working with consultants on the pedestrian plans and improvements for better connecting downtown with the Mill on Etowah and the Etowah River Trail system. Sustaining our natural environment is a tenet that crosses many work processes of the city. This past year, the city started its first Environmental and Sustainability Advisory Board, which is tasked with reviewing projects and policies enabling the city to be good stewards of our environment. Some of the projects accomplished in 2022 include contracting with HGOR to complete an Etowah River buffer analysis to review plant species and conditions of the city's property along the river. This firm was also tasked with reviewing the city's landscape requirements in the development code and suggesting native plant species to be added to the plant palette, a key initiative of Councilor Sandy McGrew. Thank you, Ms. McGrew. The city contracted to begin implementation of automated meter infrastructure, AMI, for the utility system, which will aid in advanced water leak detection and improve customer service efficiencies. Improvements to our water treatment facility have begun to improve our water treatment processes and system operations. The city also contracted with Schneider Electric to complete a citywide sustainability audit and work with city staff as Canton applies to be recognized as part of the Atlanta Regional Commission's Green Communities program. In the coming year, we are hopeful to begin adding electric vehicles to the city fleet, as well as starting the treatment operations at our expanded water pollution control plant. Connecting citizens to parks and recreations remains a top priority for your mayor and council. As you know, Canton has a beautiful park system along the Etowah River. Work continues to connect Heritage Park with Bowling Park by trail, and later this year, residents will be able to walk along the river all the way from our eastern city limit boundary opposite Interstate 575 to our northwestern city limit at Bowling Park without touching a roadway or sidewalk. Last year, the city purchased property for the development of a new park along Marietta Highway, the first park in South Canton. We're currently working with TSW on preliminary designs for this park, which will include a new state-of-the-art dog park, one of the citizens' top priorities in our roadmap development. Again, a new state-of-the-art dog park in South Canton. So all of our dog owners and our furry citizens will be very happy to hear that. So last fall, the city also broke ground on the expansion of our oldest park, Harmon Park, which will be home to the mini-pitch soccer field established through grant funding with Atlanta United, the first funding of this project in the state of Georgia. Other amenities will include a new basketball court, improved baseball fields, a new pavilion, a riverside trail, and added parking. We especially want to thank our citizen, Mr. Bill Kent, for his generous donation of land adjacent to that park, which allowed this project to proceed forward. And speaking of soccer, Canton Tourism launched a partnership with Georgia Impact and will be prominently noted on the jerseys of Canton's new women's professional soccer club, set to take the field in late May at Cherokee High School. In other park improvements, new restrooms have been added to the connector trail between Heritage and Etowah River Parks. And while Canton has also felt the impact of market delays on products, I'm proud to report that all of the Heritage Park playground equipment has finally arrived, and we're simply waiting for a run of good weather to begin the site work. God willing, and the river don't rise. Lastly, we want to thank our residents for their approval of the recent SPLOST extension, because this funding source alone will provide over $20 million for parks and recreation projects over the next 6 to 8 years. Thank you. Improving infrastructure for future demands is a tenet that requires careful planning and a great deal of engineering. Our city engineers, David Hatabian and Bethany Watson, work diligently to oversee projects related to water, wastewater, trails, roadway design, stormwater, development, and connectivity. The Canton Transportation Master Plan was completed and presented to Council at our last meeting. This project included public input meetings, surveys, digital mapping activities, stakeholder feedback, reviewing county and state project plans, and months of meetings. Councilor Joellen Wilson is our lead in transportation and has done a marvelous job in ensuring this tough work gets done. She keeps us on track every day. We will begin prioritizing transportation projects at council meetings over the next several months and work to make sure these system improvements get done across our city. Later this winter, the new traffic signal at entrance to Teasley Middle School will go into effect. I'm sure our parents will be happy to hear that. And currently, we're also working on construction design for a new traffic signal at Reinhardt College Parkway and Reservoir Drive, a signal that the city has petitioned GDOT to warrant for many years. I'm sure our residents in Great Sky, Laurel Canyon, Soleil, and adjacent neighborhoods will also be happy to hear that our engineering consultants continue to work on designs and environmental studies for expansion of State Route 140 on the north side of Canton. While we know that projects that include state and federal funds generally take a long time to get started and finished, we're proud of the fact that our initial concept for this corridor has received design, utility relocation, and construction funding for critical phases in the last several ARC funding cycles. That's a great start, to say the least. Other major infrastructure projects from last year include the completion of the old ball ground sewer expansion project, citywide road resurfacing projects, and completion of the new Laurel Canyon Water Booster Station. In the coming year, we will complete the first phase of our sewer plant expansion, including the ability to raise treatment capacity, install water flocculators, demolish old water tanks on East Main Street and Brown Industrial Parkway, add a replacement water tank for South Canton, and begin construction engineering for projects in our transportation master plan. And while leading with excellence, the last of our 8 roadmap tenets is often considered the least glamorous work by many, it may be the most important for the effective operation of our city. First, we were happy to add Mr. Dwayne Waterman to our council in 2022. His knowledge of and process-minded mindset has been a great addition to our elected body, and he's made us a much better council. In the past year, the city also completed an unheard-of trifecta: updates to the city charter, code of ordinances, and unified development code in a single year. Most communities choose to work on one of these during a 4-year term. Our council, city clerk, Ms. Andy Fortner, and city attorney, Mr. Bobby Dyer, along with our staff, worked on all 3 simultaneously. I want to give a personal thanks to our council members, our committee chairs, for never shying away from the hard work and often tedious work that moves Canton forward. Thank you. In addition, the city received and responded to, get this, 935 open record requests in 2022. That averages over 3 per working business day. Tell me we're not transparent. Somebody? Anyone? We also received a record 21st consecutive Government Fiscal Officers Association award for our budget, and we continue to operate the lowest property tax rate of any jurisdiction in our county and the lowest in the city's history. In case anyone missed that. We continue to operate the lowest property tax rate of any jurisdiction in the county and most of the state, and the lowest millage rate in the city's history. And we're over 100 years old. So. We certainly could not complete this work without the amazing team of our 134 staff members. Combined, this group ended 2022 with 872 total years of local government service to Canton. It takes every member of this team to protect, maintain, operate, and service the residents and properties of our community. In 2022, Canton took the lead by raising the base compensation for employees to $20 per hour for all employees. Additionally, the city instituted a paid parental leave program providing 3 weeks of parental leave. For our police officers, the city also instituted a new step pay plan that provides clear career pay for our professionals in law enforcement. In the coming year, we will finalize the reapportioned ward maps, assuring that each ward is similar in population and opportunities to serve. We'll also complete a review of the city's land use, growth boundary agreements, zoning classifications, and development patterns. These initiatives, in combination with our previously issued 12-month abeyance on all new residential development projects, our approved citywide transportation master plan, and additional public input will provide all the information we need to integrate responsible and smart growth strategies as part of our Phase 2 Roadmap initiative. As Canton's estimated portion of the newly extended Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, SPLOST, is expected to be more than double from the last referendum, from $24 million to approximately $49 million. We will develop a capital improvement plan based upon those proceeds. Lastly, we will hold our general election as well as a special election in November as we congratulate former Councilor Will Carlin on his recent appointment as an Associate Magistrate Judge for Cherokee County. So those are some of the highlights from the 8 tenets included in our roadmap for success. As you can see, working together to create and implement one consistent plan allowed our city to be more productive than ever in 2022. But we remain a work in progress. Henry Ford, a great American industrialist and someone who redefined the concept of productivity, once said, "Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success." Progress certainly means different things to different people, but we remain committed to working together with a unified goal of making Canton a better place to live, work, play, and serve, not just for today, but for generations to come. To be successful, truly successful, we must follow our roadmap to arrive at a higher calling. We must continue to work together to create a community that is fundamentally stronger, not because we all agree on everything, but we acknowledge it's not the final destination, but the journey that matters. After all, it's the journey that brought us all to the experience and care for this special place. Whether your great-grandparents were born here, you had the good fortune to outbid someone on a house last year when you decided to move into the city from the county, whether you found a place to rent in Canton so you could work for a high-tech company that was recently voted the #1 entrepreneurial company in the nation, Or like me, you were driving down Interstate 75 one night in 1996 and saw an exit sign for Canton and followed your instinct to discover the hometown of your dreams. In the end, it doesn't really matter how we all got here. We all just need to consider how fortunate we are to be in this special place in this incredible moment. As many of you may know, I started a hashtag several years ago to sign my personal aspirations to our great city as the coolest small town in America. To be transparent, that may have been fudging it a bit at the time, but I believed it to be true in my heart and soul. Today, I proudly use the hashtag, as do many of our citizens, with 100% conviction as an accurate reflection of our wonderful community. Of course, there are skeptics that say Canton can no longer be considered a small town with a population of over 35,000 people. But I don't think a community is necessarily defined by numbers alone. In many ways, Canton still retains its small town character, especially in the hearts and souls of its residents, and home is really where the heart is. If you haven't experienced the kindness of our citizens or nonprofit organizations, if you haven't spent a few hours exploring the most celebrated adaptive reuse project in the state of Georgia at the mill on Etowah, if you haven't taken a long walk along the river trail on a sunny day, if you haven't kayaked Lake Canton or the Etowah River, if you haven't dined at some of the best damn restaurants in the state of Georgia, if you haven't kept it weird at Bizarre Coffee or discovered some amazing local art at Menagerie on Main, if you haven't taken a selfie at the Wildflower Mural or sipped a shirtless IPA at Greenline Brewery, if you haven't enjoyed listening to Kurt Lee Wheeler and Jennifer Puckett croon Tennessee whiskey at the historic Canton Theater, or celebrated a birthday under the stars at First Friday, if you haven't read Canton's roadmap or don't understand why other cities in our state are trying to replicate our success, and if you haven't explored these things, there's so much more in our city that our city has to offer. Or if you can't simply understand why Canton is the coolest small town in America, I really only have 3 words for you. Bless your heart. Yes, Canton has grown and will continue to grow. Located in the 13th fastest growing state and serving as the county seat of the 54th fastest growing county in the country, it's impossible to stop growth. However, with a steadfast commitment to quality over quantity, intelligent planning, and consistent implementation of our community plan, we will continue to design our own destiny. Later tonight, we will be hearing an update of our 2020 housing study, where we will find that our strategies are working to not only slow growth, but also impact the character of how Canton is developing. This data provides us with the factual information we need to make informed decisions that are aligned with our citizens' goals for our city. As we move into development of the next phase of our roadmap, we will continue to engage our residents as co-creators of the future of our community. To continue to thrive requires, as Henry Ford said, working together. Working together requires us to answer that higher calling as we continue to create the coolest small town in America. It requires us to think outside of the box, and at times to think outside of our immediate neighborhood. We must work together to ensure our city is successful in a holistic manner, and the sum is greater than all of its wonderful little parts. Canton's success must be celebrated and inclusive to all who reside in our city. And let us, as we navigate our roadmap, let us never forget, greatness cannot be achieved without kindness as our compass. Yes, my friends, the state of our city is compelling, but our story always begins with you. Thank you. We will take a 5-minute recess and reset, and everyone's welcome to stay for our council meeting, but you're also welcome to leave and dine at one of the best damn restaurants in the state of Georgia. But we will reconvene in 5 minutes to begin our council meeting. Thank you.
I wonder why you didn't move here and force me over here.
Who knows?
Bobby, how did Lions go today?
It went pretty well. We actually had a pretty good crowd,
Good. Oh, really?
and the speaker was good. That was entertaining and informative,
That was the lady from Walmart?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
but not the one that you thought was coming. She couldn't
Diane
come.
wasn't. Okay.
I'd like to call our January 19th council meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We'll begin with a consideration to approve tonight's agenda. Are there any revisions, changes, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved in a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members vote for the motion. We'll begin tonight. We have one public hearing. Item A, public hearing, discussion, and possible action on charter amendment to reapportion the city council wards by establishing new ward boundaries. Mr. Peppers.
Mr. Mayor and Council, you have before you an ordinance, and we have advertised for a public hearing tonight. If you recall, at the last meeting, we provided to you options for reapportionment of the wards. This is a project that we undertook after the census data was received last year with our GIS staff and brought back some recommendations. The map that you have before you that's been advertised, which we also have on the wall over there, makes changes to the wards to make them more aligned in population. So basically what we have done is we have provided a map which takes Ward 2 south with its boundary being exit 16, its western boundary being Marietta Highway. It now includes the area between Reinhardt College Parkway and MLK along Riverstone. It also goes up on the eastern side of Bluffs Parkway and incorporates Town Mill, Summerwalk, Park Village neighborhoods just north of the Bluffs. Additionally, all lands that are east on 575 would be in Ward 2 under this map. So just to give you a little bit of data, the map as proposed has a population in Ward 1 of 10,373, population in Ward 2 of 10,846, and a population in Ward 3 of 10,372. I believe at the last meeting there was a question about businesses and number of businesses. There are 246 business licenses in Ward 1, 566 business licenses in Ward 2, 229 business licenses in Ward 3. As this is a public hearing and it relates to the map, the request of staff would be that you have the public hearing. If council so wishes to adopt the map tonight, we'll have another public hearing and map vote at the meeting in February on this particular item. I'm happy to answer any questions you have after the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we will open the public hearing. On the charter amendment to reapportion the city council wards by establishing new ward boundaries. We had no one sign up to speak, either in favor or opposition to reapportionment of the ward boundaries. So we will close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion. Ms. Schmidt?
Mr. Mayor, since we have this captive audience here tonight, we don't usually have that. Can you or Mr. Peppers quickly just explain again how this hasn't been done in forever and why we're doing this?
Sure. So reapportionment normally occurs after every census. And I wasn't here in 2010, so I don't know what occurred after the 2010 census, but understanding that what has happened is over the last 20 years as annexation had occurred in the city, they were just tacked on to whatever the most adjacent ward was. And some of those population figures got out of balance. Canton is a little bit different than, say, reapportionment at the state level or the federal level because we have 3 wards and 2 representatives of each ward. They're elected citywide, so you don't just get to vote for the person that represents your ward. And additionally, at every election, there is someone from your ward up for election. So if you're qualified as a candidate to run, you can run every 2 years in the city as that seat comes open. So what we have done is we utilized the census data that we received, had our mapping group work with that data, and try to align our ward map that we've presented to you with a few qualifications. We ask that we not split neighborhoods. We ask that we work as closely as we can to get the populations between the 3 wards as close as possible. Like I said, they're all at about 10,000. And then the last thing that we ask is that we use boundaries that make common sense. So roadways, the river if possible, and that's what we've laid out before you.
Thank you.
And just as a reminder, the current wards as they currently stand, population of those wards, I believe Ward 2 is around...
Off the top of my head, I believe one of the wards has 14,000, one has 12,000, and one has 2,000. So they were well out of alignment. But we did not want to update them without the new census data. So.
Exactly. So Ward 2 has been underrepresented for many years, a couple decades there at least. So again, it's far past time that we've done this. So again, the new ward map, as we discussed and I think agreed to in the last meeting, I think is almost identical in population. I think we also agreed that the boundaries were very clear and easy to understand. Looking at the map for citizens to understand which ward they lived in was something that we currently lack on the ward map. And I think we lack the ward map, proposed ward map, for all those reasons. And especially bringing Ward 2 into the modern age and in population and in ward boundaries there as well. So,
and I would just make one other comment. When council approves this map, and if they approve it tonight, approve it at the next meeting, that would allow us to have this in place for the election this coming year, and would also satisfy the requirement that we have in the charter that individuals running for council have to have lived in their ward for 6 months. That gives us that over 6 month time between qualifying and the approval of the maps.
Ms. McGrew?
Thank you. Mr. Peppers, is there a map we can see?
Give us a second.
No is acceptable. I understand.
It is in your packet. It is on the wall over there. Is there
Okay.
a particular...
Then my question is, for public record,
Sure.
can you state what was added to Ward 2 to even out the population?
Sure. So Ward 2 currently was split around Hickory Flat Highway. That was kind of the southern boundary, and Ward 3 picked up at Hickory Flat Highway South. So we've moved that boundary down to the bypass, and so that's kind of the area we filled in at the bottom of Ward 2. We then added all of the residential that's east of 575 into Ward 2. So that would be Rose Creek, that would be Mountain View, Hillcrest, and Cherokee Overlook, and then Canton Marketplace as well. And then additionally, we've added a portion of Riverstone between Martin Luther King and Reinhardt College Parkway, and then the entire eastern side of Bluffs Parkway north to Town Mills, Summerwalk, Park Village.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, Mr. Tolan?
Given that currently lowly Ward 2, with just over 3,000 residents, would catapult to the largest ward in the city with the largest number of business licenses. I would like to make a motion that we, hang on just a second, that we reapportion the city council wards by establishing new ward boundaries as presented tonight.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion.
And as a follow-up, this will be on the agenda again at the February 2nd meeting because we're required to have 2 public hearings, and you'll have to approve it at that meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peppers. Next, you have in the packet the draft minutes from our January 5th meeting. Are there any changes, revisions to those minutes or a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. We have 3 informational items on the agenda this evening. Item A, presentation of the Canton Housing Needs Assessment and Market Analysis Update by Thomas P. Miller and Associates staff. Mr. Patton.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, council members. If you'll recall, the city contracted with Thomas P. Miller and Associates to prepare a housing needs assessment market analysis. That work began in 2019, completed in 2020, prior to the census data being available. City wanted to update the housing needs assessment to incorporate the 2020 census data for projections relative to housing needs, that sort of thing. Mr. Brett Weiler with Thomas Miller and Associates will be making the presentation tonight. It will be a virtual presentation. There should be a PowerPoint that will show on the slides. Mr. Weiler, are you there?
I am there, Mr. Patton. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Patton, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to present to you this evening, albeit virtually on the phone. I'm hopeful that you'll find the presentation informative. So I'm going to try to keep it brief and concise for you folks, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the back end. As Mr. Patton mentioned, my name is Brett Weiler. I represent Thomas P. Miller and Associates. We are a professional consultancy based in Indianapolis, Indiana. We work all over the country. We do housing analysis and studies all over the country, many communities that are very similar to yours, and oftentimes communities that are different than yours. If you could move to the introductory slide, please. Mr. Patton covered this already, but I do just want to recap. We did perform a comprehensive housing study and analysis in 2020. A lot has changed since 2020. The study was largely conducted in 2019 into 2020. We know that was an eventful year, but maybe more importantly, for purposes of this study, we have access to new data. And so we were able to reconnect with Mr. Patton and his team and provide an addendum to the additional study with new data, in addition to what I would characterize as some high-level strategic recommendations for city leadership to continue or to consider. If you could head to the next slide, please. I do want to go over a couple key findings from our updated analysis. 3 categories. The first is demographic and socioeconomic key findings. What I'm going to cover here tonight is not comprehensive necessarily, but what we thought were some of the more important findings to discuss and highlight for you folks. And these demographic and socioeconomic findings really just provide additional insight to us into the potential housing challenges or opportunities that you may have in Canton. So next slide here, you'll see a population trend line for the city of Canton. And I want to point out that we saw significant growth between 2000 and 2020. And then what we've done is we've used some modeling software to forecast population growth out to 2027. Now, this is not a goal of the cities. This is just a forecast that we've put together utilizing some modelized data. And you'll see here that there is a prediction that population growth will continue to grow, albeit at a slightly slower rate. It's looking at about 1.3% growth per year up until 2027. Next slide, please. Next, you'll see here a simple visualization of commuter inflow and outflow. Commuting patterns are important because it shows us who's coming into work and who's leaving for employment and work elsewhere. And we see from the data that in 2019, more people were coming to Canton to work than those that were leaving, meaning that really the city is drawing workers in instead of losing them to other areas. This may have an impact on housing availability and accessibility. Next, I just want to go over some high-level findings related to housing availability. This is really an assessment of the current housing stock in the city, or the supply in the supply and demand equation. So on the next slide here, you'll just see a breakdown of home types in Canton. For purposes of comparison to the previous study, in 2020, single-family homes constituted about 62% of the housing stock. Today, we see that number rise to about 66%. Additionally, in 2020, multifamily homes constituted about 37.5% of the housing stock. Now you're seeing that reduced down to about 33%. In the next slide, we can look at housing stock by year built. And really what I think the highlight of this visualization shows is that you had really a housing boom in the first decade of the 2000s. And what we've seen since is really a slowdown in new construction. Next slide, please. As part of our process, we also try to develop a future housing demand model and use some assumptions there, and I'll get to those here momentarily. But our housing demand model estimates that Canton will need to develop or redevelop an additional 3,900 housing units before 2032 to accommodate rising population and maintain current housing costs. We considered current approved housing development, recognizing that those are primarily medium and high density units, which we believe will become more important as the city's population continues to grow and land availability declines. Now, this is not a perfect model. We think it's a useful model, but we do make some assumptions when developing or coming up with that 3,800 number. First, we assume that the average household size will remain constant from 2020 to 2032. To predict the total housing units demanded by 2032, we need to make a population projection. And in order to do that, we assumed that the city's growth rate over the last 5 years will continue for the next 12. And then finally, the ratio of total households to total housing units is expected to remain constant. If affordability is to remain constant or improve, this ratio, we believe at a minimum, must remain constant. So based on those assumptions, we believe the minimum number of housing units required, we can calculate that by averaging the ratio of households to household units over the last 20 years, applying that average to 12-year estimates of the number of households, and then using that population trend, occupancy, group quarters, and household size data to come up with our projection of about 3,800. Next slide, please. The last category of key findings I want to address is housing affordability. An affordable housing market, in our experience, tells us that it will support economic growth for the city, housing stability for individuals and families, and lead to a more prosperous region. First here, you'll see a simple housing cost burden. we use a 30% figure to determine housing cost burden. And that is a figure that we use, that is adopted from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, often known as the Department of HUD. And so it says, cost burden means that if individuals or families are spending more than 30% of their income on rent and utilities, they are considered cost burden. Okay? So what we see here is that nearly 40% of folks in Canton are considered by that definition to be cost burdened. Next slide, please. If you look at it a little bit more specifically, we'll see that renters have a higher incidence of cost burden, with over 50% of renter households being cost burdened. You'll also see here that cost burden is higher when compared to the state of Georgia and the rest of the country. Not by much, but it is a little bit higher. Next slide, please. We also want to look at median home sales price using a longitudinal study. And so we see here in Canton, the median home sales price has increased by almost 100% between August 2017 and August of 2022. That's about double the national averages. Next slide, please. Looking at the average number of days on market, one general thing that we learned from this and some of the other data is that the housing market overall is more competitive. Houses are selling faster for much more than 5 years ago. Even in the past 2 years, median home prices has jumped significantly. Until about recently, what we're seeing is that they're staying on the market a little bit longer more recently. We think that's a reflection of rising interest rates. Next slide, please. And you could actually go to the last slide here. And I do want to cover some of our recommendations. You see here that they are fairly high level. There's 6 of them, but we really focused on 3 key areas: ways that we can support pathways to home ownership, ways that the city can take full advantage of a number of public funding sources, and then thinking about redeveloping or developing for the future. So I'll try to cover each of these briefly. But we know in the first one, to support pathways to home ownership, we know traditionally that's been the most effective pathway to financial stability and wealth creation for Americans and American families. Current economic conditions and forces have put that dream out of reach for some individuals, including in the city of Canton. And so what we've encouraged city leadership to think about is to develop intentional and specific program and resources to improve those pathways to home ownership. One way we believe the city can do that is to create a down payment assistance program. From our experience, we know that one of the most prominent barriers to home ownership, especially for low to moderate income families, is the inability to accumulate sufficient funds to afford that initial down payment and closing costs. So because of that, we encourage city leaderships to explore options to create and capitalize a down payment assistance fund. Now, that fund can be structured a number of different ways. It can be structured as a grant, a low or no interest loan, a forgivable loan, or a deferred loan that's due until the resale of the home. But generally, this program can be structured in a variety of ways. And in the report, we've provided some funding opportunities to capitalize that fund, and then we've also included a couple best practices from other communities. Second, we recognize that another barrier to home ownership for first-time buyers is an information and knowledge gap. Buying a home for the first time can be arduous, it can be complex, it can be hard to understand the entire process and the requirements. And so we really encourage city leadership to either create or partner with an existing organization to create a homeownership education and counseling program. This program should be designed to help families learn more about the process, determine if homeownership is a good fit, and help begin early on identifying potential obstacles, how to access resources, and take those appropriate steps needed to become a homeowner. A few topics that we recommend: it could be buyer readiness, mortgage products, appraisals and inspections, refinancing, a number of other topics that could be considered. We also make note that this education and counseling program could be tied to the down payment assistance fund. We've seen some programs where those that are accessing those funds are required to participate in some or all of the programming offered by the city. And once again, we offer some case studies and best practices in the study. Our next focused area is we encourage city leadership to continue to take full advantage of the public funding sources that are available to incentivize and subsidize development and redevelopment activity. Particularly now, there's been an increase in funding from the federal government down to the state governments to support infrastructure, transportation, economic development, and for purposes of this discussion, housing. And so we encourage city leadership to have a full understanding of not only the funding sources, but the application process, funding cycles, and eligibility requirements. One way we think that you can do that is to strengthen relationships with state and federal representatives. We recognize, again, that consistent and intentional communication with both state and federal lawmakers is necessary to secure both formula but also competitive public funding opportunities and sources. So, again, we recommend the city, in collaboration with appropriate local and regional partners, to develop a strategy that will enable you to forge strong relationships with those regional, state, and federal elected officials, their staff, and platforms where you can communicate consistently about the needs of the community and understand the funding opportunities that may be available to support the housing market in Canton. A quick note, this is especially important today, considering the complexity of some of the new legislation that has passed in recent years. You have ARPA funding, you have the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, you have the Inflation Reduction Act, you have the CHIPS Act. A lot of new legislation. It's complex legislation, but there are funding sources buried in that legislation. So we encourage you to educate and work with your partners to identify the appropriate sources to support your strategic goals. Second, we also want to focus on traditional sources of public funding. And we think the world of Mr. Patton and his team, and so we know that he's on top of most of this. But what we've done in the study is we've provided links and information about some of the more traditional funding sources that could be considered and utilized, again, to activate the housing market, to incentivize developers, and to potentially subsidize some of the more tricky redevelopment projects that you may be considering in the community. And lastly, thinking about the future. To meet that number in our housing demand model, it's going to take a combination of both new housing construction and redevelopment of existing underutilized property. That combination, we believe, could lead to a healthy housing market in the future. And so just a couple small suggestions there. We think that there are a lot of really great key strategic sites identified in the 2020 housing assessment. There's been some progress on some, not much progress on others. We would just, again, encourage city leadership to revisit those sites and look for opportunities to be strategic in future development and redevelopment. And then lastly, evaluate the need and options for specialized housing. We believe healthy housing markets are characterized by diverse housing options. And so we encourage city leadership to think about all of the different housing types and how they may meet the different needs of your constituents and your residents, whether that's supportive housing, senior living, market rate housing, workforce housing, luxury housing, etc. So with that, I've covered a lot pretty quickly, but I'm happy and open to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. So, who have questions, comments from council? Thank you for the report. Ms. Schmidt.
Could you clarify on the model that you shared with us about the number of units that might be needed before 2032 as around 3,800? Does that include what's already been approved and in the pipeline but not yet built, or that 3,800 is in addition to those units?
Yeah, that 3,800, I think it's 3,861, does include some of the planned developments that were provided to us.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that same question, so it does include that, and you state in your report in total 2,832 units are planned to be built as part of the 11 approved housing developments. In other words, 75% of the housing required to support ongoing population through 2032. And it says at present, the city appears to be on track to meeting its development goal of 3,861 new housing units by 2032.
Correct.
So the report is not stating that we need, so we're on track, so we're not, the report is not calling for 3,800 housing units in addition to what is already in process, correct?
Yeah, and I apologize. The slide is misleading now that I'm looking at it. Yeah, we've considered the 2,800 that are planned to be built as part of those 11 approved housing developments. I guess we didn't want to assume that all of those would go through, but we recognize that if all 11 of those units if they are built, we see that you are on track and that you will need to develop an additional 1,029 over the next 10 years to ultimately meet that number of 3,861.
And this may be a question for Mr. Patton. Those are the 11 developments that have been approved. Does that number include developments that have been approved in the last 2 decades that are not completely built out, like at Great Sky and
Yes, sir.
Lock-in? So it does include.
Yes, sir. That information was provided. That was factored into the original housing needs assessment and that sort of thing. I believe the update does specify approximately 70% of the housing needs has been, if you will, entitled by the city with actions undertaken and projects that are underway.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I apologize. The slide is a little bit misleading. If you look in the report, it's a little more detailed and explains, I think, in a little more extensively than perhaps I did in the presentation.
No, thank you. Mr. Tillman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Brett, very nice job. I had a whole list of points that I wanted to make here, and you covered every single one of them. So thank you for that very thorough report. I'm thrilled to hear you say some of the things that you're saying relative to what cities, municipalities should do to prepare themselves for things like homeowners assistance, first-time homebuyer assistance, and other mitigating factors. Thrilled that Mr. Patton is leading that charge. I wouldn't say we're fully baked on anything, but we're heading down the road on figuring out some of these issues and finding ways to utilize developers' dollars that are willing to contribute to our housing fund for things like first-time home buyers. So really, really thrilled that activity has taken place. I would encourage folks that, if you have the time at night to read this, it's very, very interesting, particularly if you've read the first iteration back in 2020. If you're not going to read the whole thing, I would encourage you to at least read the introduction in the executive summary, because I think they do a very nice job of outlining kind of the key highlights and then the key findings from Thomas P. Miller and Associates. So just wanted to mention those things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I did want to point out, I mean, this study and update focuses on what has transpired since 2020, the original study, and today, and point out that single-family homes percentage has increased, multifamily has decreased from 2020 to today, and also the fact that our growth rate has slowed and is predicted the next 5 years to be 1.3%. Early in the week, I had a meeting with Chairman Johnston where we were talking about trying to have the county cities kind of come together to talk about growth and slowing growth. He said it was a pipe dream of his to try to have the cities to commit to, a target growth rate of 1.5%. I said, well, we're going to come in under that at 1.3%. But I think this shows, I mean, a lot of the issues that we're dealing with that sometimes I think some people misunderstand is those incredible growth rates from 2000 to 2020 that have caused a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, that we're catching up and trying to overcome. And so with that incredible growth that occurred in those 2 decades, created a lot of issues that we're trying to overcome with the roadmap. But I think just in the past 2 years, we're seeing some trends reverse and starting to make a difference. We still have certainly a long ways to go, but I think this information is the data we need to address some of those issues. So, but I think the information is very helpful and appreciate that. So, Mr. Peppers.
I just wanted to make a comment. Mr. Ingram and I, we visit with other city and county managers once a month and talk about what's going on in our region. And one of the big items that has concern for local governments is what's occurring right now at our State House. So for our audience that may not know, right now when it comes to control over certain things related to housing, the city can have minimum size units. We can have minimum square footages. We can have minimum setbacks. We can have certain rules in place about the design of housing. The state of Georgia and the legislature is being lobbied heavily by home builders and apartment builders to relieve local governments of that control so that they can get more housing in quicker, faster, cheaper. And so we, for several years now, have fought through the Georgia Municipal Association, providing resolutions from council, talking to our legislative delegation about the fact that things like that should be controlled locally. You should be able to say what an appropriate style house should look like in a community, what an appropriate style lot should look like in a community. And there is a lot of concern on the municipal front that while the state is trying to move forward in some of its issues as it relates to affordable housing, workforce housing, that will come at the detriment of local rules as it relates to our development codes. So we will, of course, update you as we go through this legislative session, but it keeps coming up every year. And so I expect there to be some legislation introduced that will limit our ability to have a development code that provides things like minimum lot sizes, minimum house sizes, and design standards.
Mr. Pett? Ms. Schmidt?
I was just going to ask you, Mr. Peppers, if you could remind City of Canton residents who they might email or call at the state if they wanted to express an opinion about that.
Sure. So you can contact any of your state house members or senators. Mandy Ballinger represents the majority of the City of Canton in the state house. We can make sure that their information is available on our website.
Thank you.
Mr. Patrick?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, if I could add on to a little bit of what Peppers talked about, the state legislature, besides ongoing discussions related to development criteria and that sort of thing, part of the discussion at the state level involves fee schedules and fees. and there's been a lot of discussion about removing all fees associated with development and construction from local control as a part of that overall discussion. The second thing that I would note for the city council members that probably was not really mentioned, if you will, in the executive summary of the update or anything, but the projections and the housing needs are a minimum requirement based upon the population projections. As to whether the city council adheres to that projection strictly, or if there's going to be consideration for a bit of a supply side reserve, if you will, that'll be something for city council to consider. But I did want to emphasize for the council that this is minimum recommendations, if you will, minimum requirements based upon the population projection numbers.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Anything else? Great. Thank you. Great
Thanks,
information.
Mr. Weiler.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor. If I may, real quick, Mr. Patton's about as knowledgeable as the guys we've encountered working across the country, so we believe you're in good hands with him and your team, and we wish you all the best of luck, and thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you. So moving on to item B, presentation of the Laurel Canyon Cottage Court Concept Plan by Lou Oliver, Inc. Mr. Patton?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, council members, you recall City Council wanted to look at the city-owned property in regards to the ability to provide innovative housing, affordable housing concepts, that sort of thing. The city contracted with Lou Oliver Incorporated. He has prepared a concept plan relative to the site itself in regards to a micro village. He is here with a builder that he's worked with in Trilith and Serenbe and some other places to present the concept and, if you will, kind of steps where to go from here for council's consideration.
Great,
Mr.
thank
Oliver?
you. Welcome, Mr. Oliver. It's an honor to have you here. So.
Thank you. This is Austin McKinney of McKinney Homes accompanying me. I'm in the business of designing and implementing communities. I think Mr. Peppers knows about some of my work in Woodstock. But since Woodstock, we've been very instrumental in master planning and implementing Trilith in South Atlanta with Mr. McKinney, the largest builder there. It's the nation's largest geothermal-powered community to date. We have about 700 units up in the past 7 years. It's a walkable town. It has a very low carbon footprint, and we're pretty proud of that community. We won Best in American Living Awards on it last year on the national level, and we won a charter award on it the year prior, and numerous housing awards. So let's see here we go. So Mr. Patton engaged us to create a master plan for the city at Laurel Canyon Village Circle. And so we envision 10 micro homes, and these micro homes are typically 1,000 square feet. They have front porches. They're going to have a village character to them. With this master plan are 3, we can call them accessory dwelling units that can be used as rental units. They can be home offices. They can be where you put your mother-in-law, should you not want to have dinner with her. There are a variety of uses those can have, and those would each have bathrooms. We have a fairly constricted site because we have a lot of topography, and we have existing utilities we're working around. But this will be very typical of what we would do at Serenbe and at Trilith, amongst other locations. This was one of the floor plan concepts we had presented the first time around, and we have advanced that to, let's see, the next slide, into CAD. These plans are very challenging because they are micro homes, and so you have to create a plan that feels really good and it functions as well as a larger house. And so, as you can see, we've got an open space plan, but we have a real dining room table in this. It has a primary bedroom and a shared bath with a secondary bedroom. And this house is under 1,000 square feet. This house is designed in such a way that we can build this conventionally. We can also build this convention built because our shapes are such that we can build this house off-site if we want to and move it in. And in that way, we can save money and deliver this less expensively than conventional. We're also looking at pricing this in SIPS panels, which is a structural insulated panel, which has very high R values, and it'll give us superior construction, cut out time, and we think it's going to cut out money. This is a proposed elevation that goes on this house. So we see these houses, we don't see punishing people for living in a small house. We want to reward them visually and give them excellent quality finishes and architecture that's on par with what you have downtown. This is the second concept, the first iteration, which is an L shape with a really amazing porch. And then this is what it looks like refined and put into CAD. And incidentally, this plan, you can have a 10-foot dining room table in spite of it being a micro home, and a bathroom that is going to read really generous. Again, great outdoor living spaces because we want to promote the idea that this is a community we're building first, and second, it's housing. This is a proposed elevation. It has a Cantonese mill village aesthetic, so we think this one's pretty appropriate for here. And then these are, this is our proposed timetable, and I have shared this with Mr. McKinney, and he thinks that we can even squeeze this time frame a little bit tighter, but we would work with the city in partnership to really refine this schedule for site development, construction, and delivering a finished product. So we're delighted to be here. We have a lot of big projects, really nationally and internationally. This project especially interests us, not because of the size or the dollar amount, but because of the impact. We're at a critical time in history because housing has become so very unaffordable, and the normal response to that is to cheapen the quality and to lessen the sense of community by snatching out amenities, street trees, good hardscape, good quality. And the reason I've invited Austin here tonight is he believes in delivering a quality community, and he is the leading builder in Serenbe and in Trilith, and he is the incoming president of his Home Builders Association in western Middle Georgia. So he is I'll call him a fine young man because I have a lot of gray hair, but he is. And he believes in what he does. Austin, can you make a few statements?
Thank you, Lou. That was saying a lot. I will say that my name is Austin McKinney. I'm owner of McKinney Builders. We've been in business around 50 years. Done quite a few projects with Lou, and really have had a lot of value in those. We take a lot of pride in those projects we work on. We're not delivering tract houses. I want to be clear about that. We are definitely not a tract builder. We build roughly 70 homes a year on average. Hope to continue to do so. But we really take pride in the projects similar to this one that we do work on and deliver to each and every owner. We take a lot of building a home is something I was telling Lou earlier that is unlike anything any other careers you could provide anybody. So we do value that, and we do try to execute that on a very personal level. A lot of the homes that we build, like Lou was mentioning, are very equipped and architecturally attractive, and that's kind of the niche that we find ourselves fitting in best. They aren't always the largest square footage or the lowest price per foot, but by providing each owner with a efficient design and an architecturally attractive interior and exterior, I think most people will walk away very satisfied. Happy to be here tonight. Thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you both. So, any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I do have one question. That is, you guys talked about the conventional build versus the modular build. Without putting you on the spot here to a number that you'd have to stick with, what would you say the average per square foot cost would be for the conventional versus if we did a modular?
Yeah, we think that conventional, there are a lot of different variables depending on what kind of energy system we put this on. We're pricing geothermal. Right now we have that in some numbers. We also are capable of doing a building shell that has got very high R ratings that we can look at solar options on. What is in pricing now are very good finishes, from hardwood floors to quartz countertops to real wood construction of cabinets and clad windows, a Pella window kind of quality. So I'm going to say right now our typical price per square foot in conventional with that kind of quality is about $300 a square foot. We are really striving, and we're on a course to get that down to the low to mid 200s per square foot, and still do excellent energy ratings. And I think we're going to get there by merging the conventional numbers with systems built, which means we have to look at SIPs and we have to look at modular. Modular is a profane word to a lot of people, but I think the perception of modular is that they're trailers and that they're low quality. They're low quality if you put low quality materials in the factory in them. Otherwise, they're high quality, just like a car. So we would not scrimp on any quality whatsoever. I think the city providing developed lots and working with us on permit reliefs and whatnot, we can achieve $225 a square foot. That was a very long answer. I apologize.
Fine. So that's essentially a traditional build. If the city opted for as much as possible modular build, what does that do to the cost?
You,
in
well,
generalities?
we're looking at that cost right now.
Okay.
We know that modular is about, conventional modular is about 150 a square foot, but the models to date are not good quality in modular, and so we would want to up the quality and also do a lot of site-built features like porches, the right kind of landscape, hardscape, fencing, and all the goodies you saw on the elevations. A lot of that has to be site-built. And so when you add that with green energy features and the foundation, which is normally not included in the modular cost, it's gonna get you into that $225 a square foot range.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
It looks like from the site plan that there are 2 parking spaces provided for each unit and 1 for the accessory units. Is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. McGrew?
Thank you. Can we go back to the slide with the concept of the plan, please? Thank you. It's a great design. I like it. I wanted to ask you a question about storage in the homes. How do you build in extra storage?
Very good question. With modular, it is very difficult. I'll start over. What we're going to do is we're also going to price foundation systems that are modular. Those foundation systems have to be crawl space because modular units fit on a crawl, and typically we'll do a 4-foot crawl space. We can have an access door. We would do what's called a rat slab, which is a 2-inch slab in the crawl space, and that space would be semi-conditioned. And so you would have under your house for a huge amount of storage. That is if we go modular. If we do conventional, we would do a turn-down slab on grade. So part B to that question, if we do modular, we can do a tilt-up roof system which will give us an attic. So we can do a pull-down stair into the attic. If we do conventional, the cheapest way to do that is with trusses, which are difficult to store anything in. An upgrade from that is a stick-built roof system with an attic. So conventionally, the storage space is more expensive, but if we're able to do systems built, it's almost part of the program. That's why we're so interested in systems built.
Thank you. One of my other questions is, I didn't notice any community space, and I was wondering, one of our tenants and our roadmap is creating great neighborhoods, and I was hoping to see community space in the center so that the residents could gather in the evenings and
Sure.
Cook out,
Sure.
play in the swings, cornhole. And I was wondering if you could bring the houses more in, have the road go around, maybe one way, and give this community some gathering space, because this will be our flagship, our premier product to show what the city, the county, and people, what can be done, and to show off your work and your ideas in the best possible light.
Absolutely. We have at the bottom of the master plan, the bottom side, where all those woods are, that is a very steep slope. And to the top is also a very steep slope downhill. So we can't expand those units really up or down without either hitting a utility or getting into some pretty severe grades. I would say we would need to lose a unit to get significant community space.
Well, could 2 ADUs be lost? Have one to show the public, and would that help?
Absolutely, we could. Yeah, we can, I mean, we can lose one or two ADUs, or try to lose one and maybe look for another site for the other. We're very tight, but we can work with you and Mr. Patton on looking at where that could be added, and we're completely aligned with that.
Well, this is very important to me, that if we do this, it be the best thing ever.
Totally.
And everybody wants to be there. And as much community involvement as possible, give the owners pride of being there, make them love the property, be proud of it, and love being there.
Yeah, that's excellent. We do love the ADUs though, because there are a lot of small families that have in-laws that need housing, and it's totally unaffordable.
I understand that. I look at the ADU as something extra, like you would build for your grandmother, your aunt, or your teen who can't get a job yet. So in my opinion, and take it as you will, people can think through that for themselves. But the larger units would inspire more people.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Questions, comments? I enjoyed your presentation. I think
Thank you.
it's exciting to be talking about this project and this very innovative approach to this very small parcel. I mean, I think it's to see possible design solutions. I think helps all of us to understand what we're striving for here, which is challenging on many levels. But to hear communities such as Trilla and Serenbe being mentioned, I mean, I think that's the quality that we're all going for, and I encourage our citizens to look up at those communities, and if you haven't been there, to look at them, and that is the level we're striving for. And again, big fan of your work, and love what you're bringing to the table, and working with Mr. Patton and our team, and appreciate your thinking and your passion for your work and what you're doing, and look forward to how this project proceeds and develops even further. So,
thank you, Mayor and Council. We appreciate the opportunity.
thank you very much. Moving forward, item C, presentation of project highlights from Canton Transportation Master Plan. Ms. Watson?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. So later tonight, we'll be asking for approval of the Canton Transportation Master Plan. But I did want to highlight a few projects, and I do want to point out that these are not priority projects, and I'm not asking for any kind of action. I just want to kind of go over what was in the Canton Transportation Master Plan, and I'll do this over the next few council meetings just to kind of show the different types of projects that we have, maybe some different funding sources, and the cost of those projects. So the first project is the Marietta Road Roundabout, and this is at the intersection of Hickory Flat Highway and Marietta Road. The estimated cost is $1,460,343, and this project would be a single-lane roundabout there at the red light. A couple of different potential funding sources are impact fees, which this project would have to be added to the capital improvement element. This is in the tax allocation district, and then there's a number of grants and other funding sources through the ARC, GDOT, and Federal Highway Administration. And then there's the concept plan there. And then the next project is the Marietta Road Sidewalk Project. So this is from, and I'm going to skip to the next one so I can kind of talk about the concept plan. So this project is for sidewalk from the gas station there at Canton Creek all the way to East Marietta Street. Currently, there is sidewalk from the gas station to John T. Pettit, but as you probably know, that sidewalk on the bridge is very unsafe. So this project would have a pedestrian bridge across Canton Creek. And then this project estimated at $2 million, I can't read it, $2,689,588. This potential funding sources for this is also the tax allocation district, as well as a number of different types of grant programs through the ARC, GDOT, Federal Highway Administration. I will say for this particular project, the city staff has applied for a grant for the Canton Creek pedestrian bridge and sidewalk all the way to the railroad, which would include a crosswalk. And that is all I have for the projects tonight, but I'll be happy to answer any questions about those if you would like.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. So on the roundabout for Marietta and Hickory Flat, that is that indicating an extension of Hickory Flat across?
Correct. It would, so currently there is technically a drive there. You can drive into it. So it's not an additional drive. I think it's labeled like that in the, as a future connection. But potentially if we ever did any kind of development in the old sod fields there, if we wanted to put in another crossing across the Etowah River, that would be a great location to connect that to.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Have any announcements this evening? We'll move on and move into our 10-minute public input period. As usual, we'll have Mr. Peppers read the guidelines for the 10-minute public input.
Thank you for your interest in providing input to the city. During this time, we ask that you address your comments to the City Council. Only those that have signed up prior to the meeting for public input will be allowed to speak. There is a total of 10 minutes allotted for public input. Please keep your comments concise and non-repetitive to those. Public input should not include remarks that are disparaging to other citizens, elected officials, or staff. The public input portion of the meeting may not contain any discussion on specific zoning council. Those comments must be addressed in a properly advertised public hearing and are included in that case file. Public input is a monologue, and council will not address comments made during the public input at the meeting. If council determines that a concern or issue that is brought up requires follow-up action, the item can be placed on a future agenda for further discussion or action.
Thank you, Mr. Peppers. We have three citizens signed up this evening. We'll begin with Mr. Charles Leo. Welcome.
Mayor Grant, City Council, thank you. Congratulations on your 2022 accomplishments. Very nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Charles Leo. I live at 105 Laurel Canyon Trail here in Canton, Georgia. It's part of the Longleaf, Horizon, and High Point communities. I was actually in attendance this past summer at the event that was referred as the Pool Time Politics discussion. I'm not looking to open up all discussions, but would like to thank those who apologized for those comments, and we appreciate it, and they were accepted. I think what we found interesting about it was that that discussion was a very robust one, full of neighborhood professionals, business people, executives, small and large business owners, Delta employees, people who really have an interest in making sure that we continue to improve our community. And what it's done is it's actually ignited what I would refer to as a grassroots initiative. The initiative or the influence of which is kind of sweeping through the Soleil, Great Sky, and other surrounding communities. And it's a healthy discussion. The marketing or political tag is to make Canton the coolest small town in America. And we like it. I like it. I think it's a great concept. I think the question that might come in around a quote like that is, if I were to ask 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 people what that means, we'll get that many different answers. In fact, I think one of the concerns and one of the things residents do point out is we want to make sure that one of the interpretations of that is people don't think that we want to be like Portland, Oregon, as one of the coolest places in America. But likewise, if I were to ask each of you what the strategic direction of our administration is around the success and objectively reaching our roadmap objectives, can we say that we are on the right path? Suffice it to say, is there a well-defined set of priorities or a line of sight as to what the plan is to grow a balanced and profitable Canton? There's nothing wrong with living and working in a successful and healthy town, especially when you consider the alternatives. We are taking some notice that decisions might be being made, not always necessarily in the best interest of what some feel is in that of the community residents and constituents, but rather the benefit of those who may not live here and vote here. For example, there appears to be an appetite for low-cost housing, most specifically rental projects, rather than looking for solutions to long-term ownership and community investment. I would like to acknowledge Mr. Miller's presentation tonight. I found it to be very insightful and eye-opening, and I plan to share it with others. Maybe it is the allure of fast subsidies from the state and federal government rather than building a long-term residential and business tax-paying base. It kind of reminds me of the Meatloaf's Paradise by the Dashboard Lights song. The short term looks very attractive, but we live with the long-term ramifications of bad decisions. Maybe it's a song we should play every time we make a decision. I don't know. Statistics show that our rental vacancy is in the 5.5% to 6% range, which is more than double the county and state. We're not looking to move Atlanta to Canton, and I don't think you are either. And why we're interested, we probably need to remain interested in developers not outside of the state, but those that represent Georgia, and more specifically Cherokee County. Let's prioritize local folks to build our communities. Developers have come to this board claiming that poor economic conditions and original plans to build condos somehow have become rentals. Most economic experts believe the current inflation issues will be short-term. I hear the tagline, in some cases, that nurses and police can't afford to live here. I can assure you that nurses can afford to live here. I have a family member who's a nurse, and it's a very successful and rewarding career. And if our police can't, why are we not reviewing their salaries to attract and retain the best law enforcement that money has to offer? And by the way, my landscaper lives in Canton. A simple solution might be, in order to build to build on the land, let's have the planners provide and find low-interest mortgages and givebacks for current and future residents. We actually are seeing this in Horizon as a developer is advertising a 4.99% fixed incentive. It might be something to add to the list that Mr. Miller provided tonight. With that profitable and positive momentum, we should identify and lift up those already in Canton currently needing assistance. We do lack diversity and Hispanic representation around city decisions. Our Hispanic population is the fastest growing in America, and it's a rich population of great individuals. Having an infrastructure plan to support long-term growth initiatives, roads, schools, and basic essentials, the community has provided overwhelming feedback on social media that this needs to be addressed. And of course, support and enforce our laws and support our very fine Canton Police Department and those of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Order, please. Ms. Pamela Thompson.
Good evening. I'm not sure I want to follow Charlie. That was very well said. Of course, I'm Pamela Thompson with Laurel Canyon as well. And I'd like to start the evening by saying thank you very much to all of you for everything that you do for our beautiful city. I've spent a lot of years volunteering myself, and the one thing I know without a doubt is you can try to help 500 people and 485 of them are going to complain about something. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But each of you on this board is our first line of defense. We voted you into the position to represent us. That's really the point of my entire message today. We are a republic, and not to insult anyone about what the definition of that means, but a republic is a form of government which we, the people, hold the power. And we, the people, elect you guys to represent us and to exercise that power. I've watched a lot of videos over the last few months and of previous council meetings, and I have not seen one time that someone came before you in a large group to urge you to initiate a housing plan that includes major growth and expansion. Not one. Yet your message has been, we need affordable housing for those who travel to work inside our city to live here. I also didn't find a group coming to you asking you to use our tax dollars to requisition a housing assessment, but you did it anyway. And that study that we've talked about tonight specifically states Canton has a unique opportunity to not only sustain development and growth, but to leverage it to create a destination for residents and visitors to live, work, and play. That is on the cover of that page, or that study you requested us to read tonight. So here comes T2 Development, who is self-described as actively...
You cannot talk about that project.
Okay, we'll leave his name out, the group's name out of it, but here comes developers. And many of them are actively engaged in the opportunistic acquisition and development of selected property types in growth markets, okay? So now you have the perfect storm. You have a study whose purpose, this whole study's purpose, is to find ways to exploit a city and an investment firm at the ready to initiate that exploitation. And I'll skip that part. You don't want to hear that. But as honorable as it is to want to help everyone, that is not your responsibility. We did not vote you to represent non-Canton residents, and we didn't vote for you to represent investment firms. Your obligation to us is very simple. Exercise the power that we give to you by representing what we want. So here we are, and here we have been telling you no to this massive growth plan. This is not what we want. If you vote today to approve any developments, you are not holding up your end of the agreement when you took office. You may think developing our city into the next Woodstock or Johns Creek is a great idea. Your study, if implemented, will double our city size in a few short years. I've read the study. I see the number of housing developments that are laid out to go into the city of Canton, and it's a lot more than 3,900. We do not agree that growth is uncontrollable. We do not agree that growth comes before infrastructure. We do not agree that we need to sell out and allow every big investment firm with money to spend to develop and destroy this community that has preserved for over many decades. We don't want our land stripped of trees, our deer left dead. What we want are some townhomes and apartments, which we have put in our fair share over the last recent years. But most of us just want parcels of land where our children can swing in the backyard and that they can cross the road to their neighbors without fear of being hit because there are fast-moving cars trying to get to work. You were appointed to exercise the power that we gave you, not abuse that power, and not ignore our desires. Not only is it okay to tell any investment firm no, but it is also your obligation to tell them no. And we expect you to live up to your obligation no matter what your personal beliefs are or your desires may be. Before you cast any votes tonight or forward, please ask yourself, are you representing what your neighbors and constituents want, or are you representing what someone else wants for this city? If it's the latter, and you go forth in that direction, you have ignored your oath to this office and to us, the people who entrusted you with that power. Thank you.
Order. Mr. Thomas Weaver.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Thomas Weaver. I reside at 131 Old Marietta Road here in Canton, Georgia. Thank you and good evening, and congratulations also on your State of the City address, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, I'm so grateful to learn that our city engineer has mentioned to you the same thing that I have been telling you for the past 2 or 3 council meetings now. As you may recall, both in December prior to Christmas and again in January, I came to the dais here to share with you that Marietta Road is stressed out. And lo and behold, the city engineer has highlighted 2 of the top priority projects that were presented by your consultant for your master transportation plan that you're ready to consider in a few short moments for formal adoption. The roundabout at the intersection between Marietta Road and Hickory Flat Highway, and also sidewalk expansion. Should come as no surprise, maybe perhaps the infrastructure of that road is very important, and I'm just so glad that the city's consultants and the city engineer, although I do acknowledge it wasn't named as priority, I'm just so glad to learn that there's more than one voice in this room who agrees with that sentiment. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you, and I'll take back to the seat now.
Thank you.
Move into old business. Item A, discussion and possible action on cases ANX 2211-004, RZON 2211-006, CUP 2211-005, and MP 2211-008, annexation, rezoning, conditional use permit, and master plan request for 20.101 acres located at 187 and 295 Gale Avenue, 191, 211, and 214 Putnam Drive for the construction of a residential development. Mr. Green?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Typically, this meeting date is to consider action on a application such as this. However, staff is recommending deferral on these cases due to several reasons. Prior to the submission of the staff report for this meeting, we had not received comments from the county, and we had not received the responses to comments or concerns that had been raised during the public hearing. Since that time, we have received both of those, and we feel like staff needs additional time to consider those, to speak with the applicant, to address some of their comments. We have also received a market study that was done for the projects. Since that time, you have received a new site plan that was formed in response to the comments. The original proposal was for 300 living units. That has now been reduced to 292. If you noticed on pages 2 and 3 of that site plan, they are showing a proposed commercial corner there. I spoke with Mr. Lowe earlier today, and he says that's not necessarily set in stone, but it is certainly a possibility. Mr. Peppers and I had discussed deferring this until February the 2nd. However, in speaking with Mr. Lowe earlier this afternoon, he is okay if it is deferred until the 3rd Thursday of February in an attempt to give the staff, the applicant, more time to discover or discuss possible options or alternatives. If you do decide to take action tonight, there is a list of suggested conditions that could be implemented. However, there could be additional ones based on the county comments that we are still digesting.
Mr. Mayor, I would also add that, we did receive the comments back from the developer after the agenda packet had been put together, along with the comments from the county. And we felt like a deferral was the best option because the residents who live in that area have not had a chance to see that information. We also asked the applicant to provide that information to all of the individuals that did attend their community input meeting on that project that they have email addresses for. We additionally have that information here at City Hall. So if someone would like to see that information, they can contact us and we can provide that to them. But we felt like as a staff that the deferral was the best option with that amount of information prior to this meeting and after the agenda had already been posted publicly.
Thank you. I think we alluded to this at the last meeting. We've been in this situation before when by law, we cannot allow additional public input, but between the public hearing, the time it closes, and then the county doesn't comment until after the public hearing closes on a case, and then the developer comes back and makes changes between the public hearing is closed and when council is expected to vote. It's sometimes a different project, and it's just unfortunate. It's the way zoning laws work, and it's backwards. So if we did defer, it would allow the residents a chance to look at this information, see what changes the developer is proposing to, quite frankly, allows council to consider all this new information before they make a decision, which I think needs to be looked at more thoroughly as well. So I would be in favor of deferring it for those reasons as well, especially if staff is recommending that they may have additional recommendations based on the information that is just come in, and they want to review it more thoroughly as well. So, but any additional comments?
One question, though.
Yes.
Mr. Green, has the developer provided the residents with those updated plans? Have they? Not yet? Okay. But we will.
No, Mr. Peppers had asked him to do that, I think, today, and Mr. Park said that he would provide that information to them. Whether it's gone out or not, I do not know.
Okay. So either we will make it available in addition to the developer also doing that as well, to those that attended the meeting, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And while the public hearing has closed, it would allow those residents, after reviewing that information, they can still contact council or staff with any additional questions or comments or feedback based on the changes. And I know these residents are not shy about doing that. So, but it would allow them to ask questions in that format as opposed to public comments. So, Ms. Schmidt?
I have one general question, Mr. Peppers, about the buffer rules. A lot of some of the feedback we got before this latest information has come in, we're being asked to adopt the county recommendations for buffers, but is it not correct that our buffer is actually a bigger buffer?
Correct. So the county requirement for buffers between incorporated and unincorporated properties is 35 feet. The city's requirement is 50 feet. And in addition, we don't consider whether the parcel is up against a roadway or not. So in this particular situation where you have unincorporated on one side of Gale Avenue and incorporated on the other side, it's 50 feet inside of that incorporated buffer would be the city's buffer. The county's requirement is only 35.
Okay, thank you. So in light of all this information and just how the system forces us to work, I would move to defer until the second council meeting in February.
I'll second.
So a motion to defer to the second council meeting in February and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item, okay. Wait a couple minutes. So item B, discussion and possible action on the Canton Transportation Master Plan adoption. Ms. Watson?
Is it you, Miss Watson?
So, I'm sorry, I was about to walk out and then called me back, so. So last council meeting, Kirsten Moat with Modern Mobility Partners presented the Canton Transportation Master Plan. Staff would recommend approval of this plan. We've been working on this for a little over a year now, and I'm very excited to have it adopted so that we can move forward with some new transportation projects. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. I certainly appreciate all the hard work and effort that's gone into this. I think it's an exciting and long overdue. I know it's a very, very ambitious project, but as I mentioned, my State of the City, this council and this staff doesn't shy away from hard and tedious work. So I appreciate and thank everyone who's worked on this plan, and I certainly encourage us to approve and adopt this plan. But any questions, comments? Ms. Wilson.
I just have a comment to thank you all for the plan. It's very, very, a very good one. I think we've had a lot of comments from the public, and it looks like those have been taken into consideration. And I know that we look forward to your other reports in the next 2 reports that we're going to get. But in anticipating getting this transportation plan through, I would like to make a motion that we adopt the Canton Transportation Master Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Congratulations.
Ward 1 thanks you.
Item C, discussion and possible action on appointment of municipal court members.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
This is the second time that y'all have seen this item, but you have in front of you a cover sheet as well as a memorandum from our clerk of court dated December 19th, where she identifies the current members of the court. Every 2 years, we need to appoint or reappoint members to that court system. Now, I have a suggestion from Mr. Dyer. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Dyer, that he's requested that this be conducted in 2 separate motions. Is that correct? And you have on the cover sheet some wording to those 2 motions. A motion to appoint a judge and a deputy judge, and then a second motion to appoint the prosecuting attorneys. I said adopt, appoint, my apologies.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Any questions, comments, or motions?
I'll do it. I move to appoint Thomas A. Roach Jr. as municipal court judge, and Daryl, I heard somebody say his name. No, this is
That's the
one.
first one.
I'm doing it right.
Okay.
Motion to appoint Thomas A. Roach Jr. as municipal court judge and Daryl Caudell, I sorry, say it wrong, as associate judge.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion.
I also move to appoint prosecuting attorneys as identified on the memo from the court clerk dated December 19th, 2022.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Schmidt.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, it's a long night. So. Item D, discussion and possible action on resolution for call of general election and special election for November 7th, 2023, and setting qualifying dates, times, and fee.
Give me a second.
Good evening again. We have our general election coming up in November of this year. Additionally, we will be calling for a special election. The general election will be filling terms for Ward 1, 2, and 3, and then the special election will be filling an unexpired term to Ward 2. The qualifying will be held here at City Hall. Specific dates for that would be August 21st from 8:30 to 5, August 22nd from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and August 23rd from 8 a.m. to noon. The election would be held November 7th. There is a qualifying fee for the council seats of $360 and $540 for the mayoral seat, which is also up in November as part of the general election. Once approved, we will begin putting together qualification packets in the clerk's office to be distributed. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about elections.
Any questions for Mr. Peppers? Motion?
I make a motion that we call for general election and special election and the qualifying dates, times, and fees as Mr. Peppers has outlined.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. One item of new business, discussion of intergovernmental agreement for Cherokee County to conduct elections. Mr. Peppers?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and Council. Before you have a draft of an intergovernmental agreement with county, with the Board of Elections to host our elections for us. We contract with them to handle all of the work surrounding the election, less the qualifying, which is done by the clerk. This agreement is very similar to prior agreements. We did make a note in here that we wanted to at least get a little verbal recognition that they utilize our facility as one of their precincts in the elections. But also you will see on Exhibit A the updated fee schedule associated with the election. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. We do not have to have this approved tonight. It can be approved at a future meeting if you want to look at this further.
Any questions for Mr. Peppers?
Or if you're just hankering to approve it, you can always approve it at the same time. It's up to you.
Well, in that case, I move to approve the IGA for Cherokee County to conduct elections.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. Mr. Peppers, you have a report for us?
I do. I wanted to let you know that, and you should have received by email earlier this week, the December 2022 operations report. It is online for the public as well. Just a couple of specific highlights from that report. We did have some employee anniversaries. Mr. Warwick's in utilities, been with us 5 years. Mary Lewis, who is listed on the report as a corporal, was just promoted to sergeant. She has been with us 5 years. Officer Cochran has been with us 5 years. He is our recruiting officer. And Erin Fullenwider, who is a detective of ours, has been with us 5 years. She recently had a baby. So we welcome a new member to our family there as well. We are now down to 5 vacant positions in the police department. The police department had 2,300 calls in the month of December. One of the big things they've been working on is that transition to Central Square for our records management system. We just moved forward with live tickets, printed tickets in the last week. Glitches when you have software, so we've been working through those. Really appreciate the hard work of our staff over there. Lauren Stallings in Records has been taking the lead on a lot of that project, and we appreciate her hard work. There are new city limit street signs put out around the city that include our logo. We did also, in December, remove low-hanging limbs along Riverstone, along the Lightway. You'll also note in that area, GDOT has a project where they're replacing the mast arms for the traffic signals there in a portion of Riverstone as well. In the month of December, we had 95 tons of bulky items that were collected at our collection site. We had 402 residents that took advantage of the site. 36 bulk item work orders where we picked up at someone's house, 55 yard bag work orders as well. We did complete all of our stormwater basin inspections for the year, and we did submit and were approved for our 30th year as a tree city. So that's something exciting. Additionally, we have been going out to bid for fencing replacement at Bowling Park at the fields out there, the ball fields, the metal fencing that's out there. We did get the basketball goals at Bowling Park replaced. We installed 3 new benches at Etowah River Park along the trail and did a cleanup in the Riverdale community. We had 29 residential COs that were issued in the month of December. Traditionally, December is a month we don't have a lot of new permits that are coming in. We are closing out construction during that month. We did have 6 new commercial certificates of occupancy that were issued and 11 new business licenses. Building and Safety Services, they did 948 inspections, residential inspections in the month of December, 135 commercial inspections. And I'll just mention to you, while we all appreciated our calendar this year and being off the week between Christmas and New Year's, our building staff worked very hard up until the last minute to get as many inspections done and get things, their COs, ahead of the holidays, knowing that we would be out. So I appreciate the hard work of Eric Fortner and his group. We continue working on our Highway 140 projects, and as the mayor mentioned in the state of the city, those are state projects, and they take a long time because of the analysis that has to be done in environmental studies, but we continue working on that. I believe next Monday the traffic signal at Teasley will be in operation. It's in flashing mode in the evenings. Don't expect it in the morning. Okay.
She's asking me not to call her.
We're getting really close to that being completed. Additionally, we did issue land disturbance permits for the Cherokee High School replacement. We did all of our reviews on the elevations for that, and they've got their land disturbance permits. They've already cleared a lot of land out there. It's a big old hillside that's gone, but there will be high school construction starting soon, and I believe, if I understood correctly, they're either currently out to bid or they should be receiving their bids for the construction package for the school in the next few weeks. We did have some design reviews that we did. You'll be seeing some upgrades to your Waffle House there at Marietta Highway. Across from the old Kmart shopping center. And we'll be getting a Palmetto Moon over at Canton Marketplace, along with a Claire's and a Sola Salon. Additionally, we did have 6 videography and photography shoots during the month of during the fall, as we're working on our upgrade to our tourism site, our new tourism site. We've been working hard on that. We did have some ribbon cuttings at Bazaar Roastery with their new bean roastery for coffee, Windstream and their communications expansion, Comfort Zone Heating and Cooling, and then House of Color. Lastly, 2 other stats I wanted to point out to you. During the month of December, there were $119,000 paid in on red speed penalties. And we did do 56 open records requests in the month of December alone. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have tonight.
Ms. Wilson?
Mr. Peppers, would you state for the record how the proceeds from the red speed are used?
That's correct. So when someone receives a red speed notice, a portion of that goes to pay for the contract to oversee that. So the equipment, it goes back to red speed. What goes to the city has to be utilized in the form of public safety.
Any other questions? Mr. Waterman.
Mr. Peppers, I don't think I caught what you said. I think you mentioned it's Palmetto Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that exactly?
It's like
it's a boutique.
Carolina clothing. I think
It's a shop, Dwayne.
Yeah.
For girls.
Okay, so I won't be going.
You might.
It's not a pub. My wife may go there.
but not, I didn't know the name, so thank you.
It is not a brewery.
But you would be lovely in pink.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from?
Just to follow up on Ms. Wilson's question, the split between the city and Red Speed, is that 35-65? Okay.
35,
Thank you.
65.
Okay, I was going to say 30-70, but 35-65.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fitz.
Thank you, Mr. Peppers.
Thank you.
We didn't have any council introduced items at the agenda approval process, but just checking. I just had, again, to remind everyone, appointments to our boards and commissions. Ms. Fortner sent out the updated list, so we had a couple appointments at our last meeting. Again, we had talked about making some appointments. Tonight I haven't received any other than, I know Ms. Wilson sent an appointment for diversity and inclusion. We could go ahead and make that tonight if you would like. Mr. David Alanis, I think, was your appointment. I've got Mr. David Alanis.
Yes.
Okay. For diversity and inclusion. Yep.
I would like to nominate Davis R. Alanis, 328 Tupelo Trail, for the Diversity and Inclusion Board.
Okay. We have a second for that nomination?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All members voted for the nomination. So we welcome Mr. Alanis to the Diversity Inclusion Task Force. So, any other nomination appointments tonight? Again, we've had some discussion on council, and I know with the holidays and all, we do have appointments to be made, but the ultimate goal is getting the best people in the seats on these boards and commissions, and we have citizens doing some great work. We appreciate that. We do have an opening on the Housing Authority, and I am speaking to a couple of candidates on that, and so I do expect by the next board meeting to appoint someone to that board because they are doing very, very important work, and they have a lot of work going on. So, but again, between now and then, if you would review those boards and commission openings, and if you have some thoughts or appointments that you would like to make at the next meeting, please email those to me, and we'll get them on the agenda for the next meeting. And again, I just wanted to thank everyone for the privilege of presenting the State of the City tonight. It's an honor and a privilege to update everyone on the achievements we did last year. I'm extremely proud of this council, our staff, and the entire team and what we've accomplished, and look forward to what we will accomplish this year working together. So I will put our roadmap up against any strategy of any city in this country, and we have mayors calling us every day, figuring out how in the hell we do all that we do, and we're happy to share as much information as we have about how we do it. Sometimes, most days, I don't really know myself, but I know it's because of the great work and determination that we have from this team, and couldn't be more proud of what we do and accomplish. So thank you all. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.
8:39.
Huh?